You're the pilot.
Well, yeah. So, I've mastered this over some time, and it's a really exciting space to be in with everything that's available with DSP. So thank you so much for having me on today. And I really would like to just boil it down and simplify it. This is not something that has to be super complex, but I do want to share with you guys just exactly what you need to know, how it's going to benefit you. But yes, it is like being in the driver's seat of this really cool machine and operating within this marketplace. So really exciting stuff we're going to uncover today.
Awesome. Okay. Well, with that, I want to go ahead and jump in so we can do the get to the fun stuff. All right. Yeah. I am now screen sharing. Cool. So what we're here to talk about today, how using Amazon's first party data will help you reach new audiences. Obviously, anybody that heard us chit-chatting right then, we've alluded to the fact that we're talking about DSP. In fact, it's right there at the bottom. Get ahead of privacy updates impacting the market and win with Amazon DSP. So that is the focal point of the conversation. But this topic in particular, we approached from the point of view of like a way around kind of this craziness happening with privacy updates and the death of third-party tracking, cookies, iOS 14, iOS 14.5. It's definitely changing the way that ad buyers can run ads. So I think it'll be really beneficial for people who are media buyers to know some of their options. I mean, I imagine some people have only heard of Amazon's DSP, but maybe never used it before, don't know what its capabilities are. So I think this is going to be really good information. But first, hold on. I have to, there we go. It did twice. So this presentation is, of course, hosted by Canopy Management. Canopy Management has, really been kind of on the forefront of figuring out the best ways to help brands scale. Obviously, with experts like you, Erika, behind the helm of the DSP department, that is proof right there that Canopy is dedicated to doing whatever we can to help our partners grow. And these stats are just a snippet of what Canopy's managed in the past: 105% PPC profit growth, 38% average conversion lift, 84% overall profit growth. These are staggering numbers. And that is, who's responsible for this presentation. But moving right along. Real quick, for anybody in the room that might not be aware of who I am, my name's Anthony Lee. I don't think I wrote foremost. Somebody else wrote that. Whatever. Analyst and speaker. We'll leave it at that. I've been talking on this topic for a little while, the last 6+ years. My background, former COO of Sixleaf, content manager at Helium 10, CEO of Signalytics. And then I have also privately had consulting clients on the side that whole time, as well as been a seller. And I run a lot of experiments. I think I spent a lot more time figuring out what not to do than what to do. But that's been super valuable for my content, maybe not for the bank account, but I'll figure it out eventually. At any rate, so I've spent most of my time studying Amazon's algorithm. So that happens to be my wheelhouse, Amazon's ranking, and, keywords, optimization, et cetera. But what we're actually going to focus on today will be presented to us by our top DSP strategist, Erika Garza. I'm really excited that you're on here. I hope that we can get you having these conversations more often, because your depth of knowledge on this topic is astounding. The last 5 years, Erika's worked with rapid growth SaaS companies, so she has a deep-rooted history in the technological side of this industry. And then, she understands the switch from end user to loyalist, comes from building relationships through the customer journey. And this is all really important. Even, most people look at Things like um, running DSP ads or doing anything highly technical. It's just you're the person that's flipping all these switches, and that is important, but there's more to it than that. Having an understanding of how that impacts the customer journey is huge. And I can definitely attest to your knowledge on that aspect of it too. And then as a part of Canopy, these numbers are really impressive. Grown our DSP partner base over 300%, driven over 80 million impressions in less than 8 months. That's more than 10 million impressions a month. That's incredible. And then our partner DSP revenue into millions. That's awesome. So, and I love this quote,
Thank you,
success
Anthony.
is in the process.
Yeah, it really is. And since my inception at Canopy, I've seen the best in class team in operation. It's really great to be a part of it and to continue to grow DSP, but most importantly, to grow people's knowledge of DSP, since this is really an untapped opportunity. So very thrilled to be with you on the call today. Thanks again.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So first, real quick, let's just talk about like what prompted this conversation. So what is the deal right now? Cookies and third-party data. Okay. Anybody that's into media buying has seen some sweeping changes over the last few months. Firefox and Safari have already phased out third-party tracking. Google will phase out 3P cookies by 2022. I also just recently heard news from a reliable source that Google's looking to do very iOS 14 update-esque things to Android. And, obviously we have iOS 14, iOS 14.5. And if that was concerning to media buyers, don't read the updates on iOS 15. Just avoid it altogether, because it's going to be, slightly jarring. The whole point of all this though, is that it's great for privacy. I mean, really from the customer standpoint, it gives us as consumers a lot more control about where we're tracked, and that's good. But it leaves marketers basically solving an issue, because we can't run ads the way we used to. We can't operate with this huge advantage we've had up to now, with just unfettered access to all of this data. It's changing the game. So how this impacts brands is, well, for starters, here's a kind of a staggering statistic that's not really pleasant. iOS 14 pushed tracking across websites and apps and platforms to an opt-in basis. So basically, if you have an iPhone, if you go to any website or go to any app, it'll ask you, hey, do you want to allow this to track you? And whereas before it was an opt-out situation, right? So you had to manually go in there and tell things not to track you. Back then, there was 70% of people that didn't, like 30% were the only ones that went in through the process to opt out. So we were able to track 70% of people on these devices and pass back that information. That's dropped to 4. So now that it's an opt-in, only 4% of people are saying, yes, sure, you can track me. So essentially, I mean, that number is so negligible, basically, on Apple devices and soon to be Android, I'm sure, you can just say goodbye to tracking cross-platform. Like, it's just not happening. So what that means is data and performance it's less reliable. Now we can't pinpoint to the accuracy that we could, what the customer journey was across all of these platforms. And then dependence on first-party data is where we find ourselves, looking to produce results. The thing is, and first-party data is amazing, and we're going to talk about that. But I know one of the issues that a lot of people have is, sellers that haven't really embraced omni-channel might say, hey, my website doesn't get enough traffic for that. And then there's probably a lot of larger brands that are already doing everything they can, or so they think, to optimize their first party data. They're like, yeah, we collect this, we use it for retargeting already, but little do they realize there's so much more that you can do. And that is exactly what we're here to talk about. So without third-party tracking, how do we find the reliable data? And with that, I want to give you the floor, Erika, and tell everybody.
I'll let you guys know, but I think we just dropped a bomb on a lot of people in the industry. So unless you're a marketer that's tuned into what's happening, we've known about this for the last couple of months, and the whole cookie system is crumbling. It's coming to a halt even now. And it's just a domino effect through the end of this year. There's going to be no way to track your performance data and track your metrics and meet your KPIs. So the industry has yet to come up with a reliable solution. They're still testing different strategies like IP tracking, you name it. There's going to be new AI that comes out, but it's still untested. And this is the Wild West, essentially online. We're starting over from scratch. The good thing is, this is where Amazon's first party data comes in as an already ready to go solution. So here's what you need to know just about first party data. So it is essentially, wait, go back one slide. It's essentially information that's collected by the web property or the app itself. So if you have a Shopify store, it's all the data that's collected there. Again, if you're a very small seller, you probably don't have enough data to scale and launch a campaign to help you reach new customers. So that's an issue in of itself. You need access. And if you're an enterprise brand, then you now need reliable data consistently to acquire new customers, retain your existing customers, increase your lifetime value at scale while still hitting your KPIs. And that is just a challenge that the industry has not come up with a solution for yet. So not only does Amazon know what you buy and have the data, but it's doing one better. It also owns all the exclusive inventory that you can place the ads on. So this is huge. This is extremely powerful that it owns both together. So they're expanding their walled gardens and created a marketplace, like a sandbox that you can work in that's data driven. So this allows you to track across apps, websites, streaming ads on Fire TV, and any other platform that they're acquiring, like Twitch and IMDb. So they own the data and the platform for an extremely powerful combination within this. I like to call it, it's a closed loop system, completely cookie free. So yeah, Amazon already has that tried and tested solution for performance-based marketers, and you can make the switch now. You don't have to wait till the end of the year. So definitely do not get left behind. So we'll talk about who is DSP for, like who should be considering DSP. And essentially it's for everyone that is an established seller ready to invest and enterprise brands that are interested in incremental reach. So if you're facing some of the issues we talked about earlier, then DSP would definitely be the way forward. But those that are going to benefit the most should have, if you're an Amazon seller, you should already have a solid Amazon performance, top selling products, optimized listings, solid conversion rate, and high sessions. DSP is just the icing on the cake to help you scale. It is not a replacement for a failed strategy. Okay. It's here to enhance your own platform experience. It's an addition to, but not in place of. So just something I want to emphasize there, that recommend you're an established Amazon seller if you are looking at DSP. And you do not have to be a seller to access DSP. So if you're a non-endemic brand, it's not too late. You can still get access. So any brands like Ford or insurance companies, et cetera, you can not only tap into this data, but you can post your ads on Amazon and then drive traffic to your own offers or landing pages. So now is the time to be proactive, make the switch, and then benefit from the shift that's happening within the Amazon space. This is also for brands that are in it for the long haul. This is not something that you can run for 2 weeks, kind of see how it works and then turn it off. These types of campaigns, just like any other display campaigns, take a minimum of 2 weeks to test new segments and then run and optimize over time. So if you look at the numbers, you'll see that the longer you run DSP, the more data you'll feed the algorithm, and then your performance increases over time. So especially for these large top of funnel segments where you're exploring new audiences. So we recommend at least a 90-day minimum. So just keep that in mind if this is something that you're considering. It's definitely for long-term growth. And then ideally, you want to be running DSP ads like 8 weeks before a shopping event. So 8 weeks prior to, say, Cyber Week or to the holidays. So between now and August is a good time to look into getting access. So how do brands get access? So there's two ways to do it. You could go directly to Amazon. They have what's called Amazon Managed Service, AMS, and they'll typically charge you a high insertion fee, over 35K per order. So that can be very expensive, and they can be a bit stiff when it comes to testing and testing new creatives, and exploring new options. So the other option is going through an accredited agency with access. So with Canopy Management, we have the flexibility that Amazon does not, without the high start fees. So we have much lower minimums and more flexibility so that you can drive results and be more performance-based. So with that said, a couple things to consider before you start your campaign planning. If you're a seasoned media buyer, then you may already know this, but always recommend double checking your marketing goals and identifying what exactly you'll be testing with DSP. So are you planning on launching videos, running OTT, strictly testing audiences, etc.? And then it's always a good idea to know your product and the seasonality. So that way you can plan ahead of time. And of course, determine a budget so that you can start testing these segments and give them enough time.
Sorry, my computer just decided to like restart the page for whatever
There you
reason.
go. Okay, we'll take it from the
Hey,
top.
technology. We don't have to take it from the
Yay.
top. I'm gonna zip through those slides in just a moment. It's only Google Slides that does this to me, and it's been happening
It's all good.
more than once, which is super frustrating.
I love technology.
I mean,
And
I
then
do
just a
too.
note, just a note on the campaign planning, because I know I get a lot of responses. If I say, what is your marketing goal? They'll say, X revenue or other goals, but this is really something more advanced where you can test a lot of different strategies. So you can get more granular with your campaigns and what you're testing. So here's an example of the first party data that we're talking about and the variety of options you have for segmentation. So I always recommend focusing on in-markets because they're extremely niche to a specific product. So these shoppers are in aisle right now. They're buying and searching for products in your category. And they're swiping their credit card, but they just haven't seen your particular product. So this is a great place to start. Regardless of the product or service you have, I assure you, you can find it in market that's extremely targeted. So for example, if you sell juicers, you can target centrifugal juicers or manual juicers, etc., and get extremely niched within these in-market segments. And these are highly relevant, highly engaged segments that are ready to buy, and definitely recommend tapping into these to build awareness for your product. You can also tap into interest. For the juicer example, you may want to look at healthy eating interest or health and wellness for lifestyle. And the cool thing is Amazon's always releasing fresh data. So they recently launched life events for recent movers, for new parents. So if you offer baby products, this DSP is a great way to target your audience. If you're getting married, Amazon knows that. And if you're a new vehicle owner, these are some examples of the life segments that you can start targeting. So again, highly relevant traffic. If you're driving this to Amazon, it'll have a synergistic effect and help with your conversion rates since you're leveraging these highly targeted segments. And then I have some examples, some examples of other products. So for the hammocks, again, you can niche down to camping hammocks specifically. If that audience is too large, you may want to negatively target or exclude things like just regular hammocks if your product is extremely niche. So you can go into these massive audiences with really finite detail and efficiency through negative targeting. So, or if you want to scale up, you can also do some complementary layering and target backpacks. So if you're looking to expand your product line, you may want to start planting seeds in other complementary segments. And that kind of offers more of a basket building approach so that you can target customers wherever they are within your journey and start bringing them into your ecosystem. So we do recommend a thorough full funnel test rather than just investing in one in-market, kind of test all the above and see what works best for your audience, see who responds to your ad. On the right, we have an example for baby onesies because Amazon has a handful of specific categories that are massive, like baby items, of course, pet supplies, vehicle owners. There are a couple segments that really win with DSP. So if you're at all interested in tapping into this, reach out to me and my team. We can pull up the dashboard and do an audience audit to see what's available and do an analysis for you. So again, this allows you to cast a wide net. This is a better example of the life event for new parents. So you can target at different stages of the journey. So pretty cool. It can get really, really niche with these products. Awesome. So not only do they have the first party data, which is extremely powerful and the only way forward for performance-based marketing, but they also own the inventory that is exclusive to Amazon. So this includes Amazon, IMDb, which they recently acquired, Amazon Publisher Services, which is a hand-curated selection of thousands of websites. And they select these based on brand safety criteria and performance. So those typically perform better than websites on the Open Exchange. We also have Twitch, which was recently acquired. That's the gaming and community streaming platform, and Fire TV. As we know, Amazon's making a huge push to streaming services, streaming TV, and is allowing brands to tap into that new expansion with Prime Video and OTT campaigns. So here's just a quick example of how you can tap into Prime Video. If you have a very specific product, like the Hodor doorstop, for example, you can specifically target anyone that is a Game of Thrones fan within a specific time and showcase your product on whichever platform you choose. So you can really niche down and target them efficiently. Probably a better example of the Prime Video audiences is leveraging this for OTT, since you have a streaming audience paired with the streaming apps and websites. So just a little bit about OTT, because this is kind of an untouched space, but it's growing extremely fast and it's growing rapidly. And we know this is the direction Amazon's moving in because it just bought Twitch and it just bought MGM Studios, which is going to be huge. Amazon is going to take over as the go-to media company now that it's just taken over the non-tracking and creating the way forward for first-party data. But just to put it in perspective, so OTT last year, it grew from 20 million viewers to 120. So it just 6x'd its subscribers in 1 year. So I guess that's the one thing that came from the pandemic. So now one in 3 connected TV users are on Fire TV device. They're on Amazon Fire Stick. So if you are a brand that's looking to move away from linear TV, then Amazon's definitely the way forward and leading the way with streaming advertising. I know there's a lot to unpack there, so I'll take it easy on this one. For the creatives and placements, this is basically what the ads look like. So on the right, here's an example of a fully custom skyscraper ad. And this is something that's not available with sponsored display. So you can set up a fully custom image on Amazon and really stand out from your competition. And you have the flexibility to either drive to your detail page or you can drive traffic off of Amazon. So if you're running a special or a coupon, if you have a new product launch, you can drive that traffic to your landing page. But this is especially beneficial for non-endemic brands that want to get into the Amazon space. You can post your ad just like it is on the right side here, and then drive traffic to your website. Amazon also has pixels that you can add that drives back to its own site. So lots of flexibility, whether you're an Amazon seller or non-endemic brand. The example on the left for Google Workplace. So this is just an example of a billboard ad. It's front and center, very prominently placed in high traffic websites. And this is across all different devices. So you have the option to use Amazon's creative, or you can use your own fully creative to tell your brand story across different platforms. So not only are you not dependent on third-party data anymore, but marketers and brands, like they can now be in the driver's seat and take total control of their creative, their brand storytelling through video and image, where they drive traffic to, all while meeting their KPIs because it's within the closed loop marketplace without any tracking required. So pretty cool stuff. And lastly, I know we've been talking a lot about performance-based marketing. So I want to take a look at the metrics here. There's literally hundreds of different metrics that you can track for a DSP campaign. So that includes having access to branded searches, branded views, detailed page views. You can even see if someone added it to their cart, added to a list, if they read a review page. You can track pixel conversions and see the impact of a DSP ad to your website traffic and so much more. The list is endless, but this is why it's so important to understand your purposes for DSP and then work backwards to understand the metrics so that you're optimizing for the right KPIs. And I just have some examples on the right-hand side. So if you are testing a new creative, you'll want to look at engagement and then perhaps do an A/B test so you can see the click-through rate of one variation versus another. And then new product launches are a great use case for DSP. And then you want to look at the metrics that signal a sale or conversion down the road. Since these are top of funnel campaigns, massive segments, you want to look at detailed page views and other things that would lead to a sale naturally. So a lot to uncover there. But here's an example of the impact of an in-market campaign on a retargeting campaign. So here you can see the synergistic effect. So pre-launch is on the left-hand side, and then the blue bar is after we launched heavily into top of funnel segments. So there's some nice sales spikes, and this is consistent, right? So it's not just an anomaly. Anyone can find a line item with really high return. This is consistent over 3 months' time, running top of funnel campaigns chronically, and then the impact to retargeting. So we went from a 6x to over 12x with a full funnel strategy for this brand. This also happens to be a baby brand. So if that is your category, then Amazon is definitely the place to be. Cool. So for next steps, again, just to recap, the brands or the Amazon sellers that would benefit the most from DSP is an interest in brand awareness, incremental reach, and going after acquiring new customers. When you can see that with the new to brand metrics. So that's first and foremost. Again, we recommend that you're in this for the long haul with a minimum of 90 days. That's how long it'll take to optimize your campaigns. The cost, if you go with AMG, it's 30 grand to get started. Plus, they do charge a pretty hefty per order or per insertion fee. With Canopy, we don't have those minimums, but a lot more flexibility, more metrics and testing. So to get started, you can just click on the link below, get started, canopymanagement.com/webinar-offer, and then we can do an analysis for you, hop on the phone, give you an idea of what audiences are available, and then help you get started.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that overview. I know that was kind of fast, and I know that we went over. It's like a lot of very heady kind of topics, right? But basically, we're talking about, the death of third-party tracking and, the third-party cookie situation constantly changing and becoming better and better for privacy on the consumer end, but harder and harder for marketers to continue with business as usual. But then we talked about the solution, and I like how you put the analogy, the Amazon's walled garden. But essentially, I mean, that's what it is, right? You have Amazon owns both the big website, the Amazon.com website, with all of the opportunities just inside of that. Like, I mean, Prime Video, like that's cool. The idea, think about how many people watch Prime Video, the idea that you could get exposure to those kinds of audiences. But then on top of that, they also own all of this other property outside of Amazon. So basically they're saying, hey, you can't track across all these websites. Well, you can when we own them, and they're buying up all this stuff. So you have all of these properties. So you're talking about placements like banners on huge websites, right? Washington Post. I mean, Amazon owns Washington Post. Of course, you have that opportunity. And then you're talking about streaming services with OTT and like, I remember back when I ran, it was funny, actually, I ran a baby brand. That was my first brand that I sold on Amazon. And I
Oh, right
remember
on.
back then thinking, like, literally falling down the rabbit hole, like, I wonder how I could like get ads on Netflix or something like that. I remember having that thought because it was intuitive for me back then to think, man, this has got to be way cheaper than television ads, right? And my competitors, my big, like, billion-dollar conglomerate competitors are running television ads and billboard ads. And here I am going, there are opportunities to get in similar audiences on similar situations on somebody's television, but it's got to be cheaper. And here we see a doorway for smaller mid-sized brands that aren't at Nike's level, and they're still able to show up in front of people during primetime entertainment hour. I get excited about it because that's pretty cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really awesome. It's changing up the game and empowering smaller brands to be in the driver's seat. And it is much cheaper. It's much more affordable, and it's performance based. So you actually know where your marketing dollars are going and not just throwing them down a black hole, because we have these metrics to support it. So yeah, Amazon's doing big things, especially with streaming. And now is the time to hop on before, CPMs go out the roof and it starts getting crowded. But there's plenty of room because they keep buying new properties every year. So
Yeah.
like
So
Twitch.
that's an important thing for everybody to realize too, is, Amazon's not going to fizzle out. They're at the peak of their growth at this point. A lot of people don't realize this, but Amazon was unprofitable for like a decade or more, right? Like they were that typical tech startup, totally unprofitable. And now that is definitely not the case. And so they're hitting their stride, despite the fact that, in some segments they have competition now. There are other segments where they can use the power of that money and do things like buy MGM Studios. What do you think they're going to do with MGM Studios? Like, they're going to take over entertainment, and that's just one sector. So as they grow, all of these opportunities for them to essentially help people make sales on their platforms are going to grow along with it. So you'll see more opportunities for sellers inside of Amazon. And you also see more opportunities for their brand partnerships. I mean, a lot of people think that Amazon just wants all the sales. No, they make a lot of money off of advertising. So they don't care if that sale's coming on the Amazon platform or on your website. If you're paying them for that exposure, I promise Amazon's happy with that. So
Yeah, they're essentially a media company, and these last couple of moves prove that. And they're moving fast. So yeah, this is just the beginning of some exciting things for next year. Lots of
sure.
exciting things.
So now that we've kind of gone over the opportunities as far as with data and placements and everything with DSP, I'd love to answer questions that anybody might have. I posted, somebody requested that I post the webinar offer link, and I did, but now you have unfettered access to Erika's brain. Um, you know, any burning questions about DSP, and we can definitely broach that topic because the presentation was pretty short, so we have a little bit of time. It wasn't one of those like hour and a half dissertation things.
Yeah,
So
I
I
know they
see a
probably
hand
kind of
raised,
feel. Oh yeah, okay. Let's
hand
see what we
raised,
got.
but go ahead and just type in the chat your question. You don't have to raise your hand because everybody has the access to the chat box, I think.
Or if they kind of feel put on the spot by asking a specific question, because maybe we went through it pretty quickly. What is it that stands out the most about the webinar? What did you not know that you now know from the webinar?
That's a fantastic
Unless they're
question.
already very well informed. We have a very well informed audience. But.
Is there a minimum level of sales someone should have before they start looking into DSP? That is an excellent question. Definitely.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
what you think?
So I do recommend that you're an established Amazon seller. Ideally, you have over 100K a month in sales. Although I have had worked with brands that had lower sales, but were interested in really pushing forward in aggressive growth and getting their brand name out there. So it really depends on not only sales, but in your specific marketing goals and your growth goals for your brand. But 100K ideally. And
So
then it's having, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna, add on to that. So it sounds like what you're saying is sales is just kind of an indicator of where a brand might be, but it's not necessarily like there is no aspect of DSP that's directly hitched to your monthly revenue. It's more about impressions and budget, right? So somebody at the 100K a month mark is in a better place because they probably have a boatload of impressions through their organic reach and through what they're currently doing with normal PPC. And ideally they'll have enough budget to really do some meaningful testing on the DSP platform.
Exactly.
Does that
Yeah.
sound about fair? Okay, that's
I
what I
love it. I
thought.
like
All
the
right.
way you translate.
Well, because I've been at every level of seller from like great success to startup mode, and it's kind of a roller coaster. So I'm thinking about it from the perspective of the questions and understanding that I need. But we'll move to the next question. How well does, oh, no, here's the next one. Is having an experience in sponsored products advantageous for DSP? Or you can do DSP outright even without sponsored products experience?
Okay, so this is a topic that's coming up even more often. So Amazon is rolling out a lot of DSP-like features into sponsored products. From what we've seen so far, it's just too new to tell. We haven't got a lot of good results in using sponsored products as a replacement for DSP because it's just two totally different worlds. There are some limitations there. Sponsored products is a CPC, whereas, so it can get very expensive very quickly, whereas DSP is CPM. So if someone doesn't click on your ad, you don't have to pay for that click. So you can get a lot more reach for less cost. And again, we don't charge a minimum fee. So I would take whatever you're going to invest in the sponsored products and just put it into DSP because it's a lot more efficient way to spend and really test. You can see the metrics. I wouldn't just test sponsored product beta just for the heck of it. You really have to make sure it's in alignment with your strategy. One thing that you cannot do with sponsored products is, sorry, I think I'm misconstrued the question. I'm referring to sponsored display.
I
Is that,
think the
Josh?
question is more like, should you be running sponsored product ads in addition to, can you jump directly into DSP without running sponsored product ads? And also with the part of the question that says experience, I'm wondering if they're asking how much more complex maybe the dashboard for DSP is.
Yeah, so the dashboards are two totally different purposes and at different UIs. So earlier I was speaking about DSP versus sponsored display, as sponsored display has a lot of new DSP-like features. But if that's what you're going after, use DSP because it has a lot more efficiency. But again, this is something for brands that you can fine tune your on Amazon performance. But this is really to get off of Amazon to those massive networks and incremental reach by the millions.
Okay.
So if that is your goal, then definitely recommend running both for sure.
Yeah. So because it's two different goals, right? DSP is more growth outside of Amazon, and then sponsored products obviously is going to be your on Amazon growth. And okay, that makes sense. All right. Next question. How well does DSP scale, and does it keep a good ROAS when scaling?
Good question. So there's two different strategies. I wish I had an image of the funnel, but today we're talking about top of funnel segments. These are designed to drive traffic and they're not revenue drivers per se. So they will have much lower return since we're looking at targeted traffic and exposure. What that will do is if you have a solid bottom of funnel campaign structure, then it'll drive sales in your retargeting efforts and to your products on Amazon. So top of funnel line items do not drive revenue, but you'll see that impact with your other campaigns. They do scale over time. You should see, if you've hit the right segment, you should see an increase consistently week over week until you hit the benchmark. For these campaigns, it's 1.5 benchmark for consideration campaigns. So yes, if you don't see that increase, test a new segment and then you'll start again.
And then I know that we didn't really touch on this topic, this one, but we are doing another workshop on retargeting in the future.
Yes.
But with regard to scaling over time, actually, when I was pulling together data, I was really impressed by one of the things that I read about retargeting ads. Unlike pretty much any other kind of campaign you can run, retargeting ads actually get higher performance over time, right? So most of the time, an ad, it gets stale and the performance starts going down, but this isn't the case with retargeting. So DSP has opportunities for you to continue to scale over time. And then regarding the ROAS part of that question, the example you gave, that was 12x, man. Like that's an insane number. That is an insane number.
6x alone is a good number.
Yeah.
And that was just for targeting. Then we, funneled some more traffic in there and doubled it. So that's huge. You can scale with that.
But I think the important point for that is like, that's the kind of number that makes you a hero in your brand, whether you're solo running it or it's your responsibility to run the ads for a brand like that right there. And these are not uncommon figures for DSP because of, how much, it just has so much reach, like leverage the power of Amazon. Anyway. Okay. So the next question, we are doing the home textile bedding business at Amazon. What do you think would be the best platform for us to run advertisements other than Amazon?
Home textile bedding business. So we could look at where your customers are online right now. So perhaps they're not on IMDb. We can exclude any websites that you would like. If you've done some research, and I'm sure you have, you probably know kind of where your audience hangs out. We can take that subset and target or exclude other segments. So we would definitely want to target, websites of your competitors, things of that nature. You can also start small if you just want to start on Amazon with some custom creatives and then start to add websites and expand out. You can do that as well, depending on your budget, of course.
Right on. So that's a good point, and it brings up a really good point too. It's not just that Amazon like owns some big, awesome platform for every category, right? Like, and then that's where you're going to get all of your sales. It's the targeting options are amazing. You can target purchasers and add to carts for various ASINs. I mean, you can target all your competitors' traffic on Amazon alone, and then off of Amazon too. You can target, like it's insane the amount of targeting options you have, and it's because Amazon knows what everybody's buying, right? So your best bet right there, I would think, is to go after competitors. If you have a better offer, Amazon gives you the ability to get in front of those people.
That brings up a really good point, because as you said, there's not like a website or just a marketplace for home textiles, right? I would recommend starting on Amazon. With the segments, you don't really need a website or a marketplace. The programmatic ads will just go find wherever your customer is. Because if I'm buying bedding items, maybe an hour tops, I give myself an hour to do the research and then I buy it, right? So, or maybe I already did my research and I'm off of that website and I'm hanging out reading the news. That's where your ad's going to display.
Right.
So yeah, perhaps you don't want to limit your reach and just go with a safe bet, which is Amazon owned and operated, and they'll do the work for you. They'll figure out where your customer is.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, right? You don't need to just have your ad on bedbathandbeyond.com. Like literally somebody that wants your product can be reading the New York Times and then boom, hey, I was thinking about that earlier today. I mean, that's the power of it. All right, so another question. Whenever I test sponsored display and compare it with the sponsored product, the sponsored display is always expensive. What do you think would be the reason for this?
Couple different reasons. Well, sponsored display is higher up the funnel. So you really have to be just prepared for that. I think it's going to be typically a little bit more expensive. And it's also a CPC, right? So you're paying for every single click, which adds up over time. With DSP, instead of sponsored display, you're paying for CPM, which we've seen a huge difference in just making that switch. So not sure like what your brand goals are, but that's definitely something to consider.
Right on.
Anthony, do you want to translate that for me?
No, I mean, I think, you're sponsored. Like the first answer is it's at a different part of the funnel, right? So you're not comparing apples to apples when you're looking at sponsored product and sponsored display. It's all about where the customer is in their journey, and the sponsored display portion. It sounds like you're just getting a whole lot of interest. So that would be a whole bunch of clicks, and you're paying for all that, even though that audience might not necessarily be at a place where they're ready to make that buying decision for your specific product. We have to remember that Amazon's not just a shopping marketplace, it's a browsing marketplace too. You're going so different advertising options are going to affect or be affected differently by where the customer is in that journey. And then, if you're at the point where you're testing sponsored display, Erika makes a really good point. Try out some DSP if you're at the revenue point where you can start testing that, because you might discover that it's better. That's the great part about having so many options. I know it can be confusing sometimes when you have a lot of options, but you understand the aim. Amazon's trying to make money. They make money by having you run successful ads. Like, period. If your ads aren't successful, you won't continue to give them money. So they're setting you up with the tools for success. And it's a matter of, okay, where I'm at in my business, what I can afford to test, where can I place these options and catch people at the right point in their decision-making process to choose my product. And so, it's good to have these options, and it's good that you tested sponsored display. And if it's not working out for you, then, keep moving.
Right. Exactly.
All right. So we have any other questions? Currently, I don't see any in here. I want to hang out for at least like 3 or 4 more minutes. So we gave it a full hour, but we'll hang out longer if somebody has a bunch of burning questions. It's fun. It's fun answering them.
Yeah,
sure.
this is the fun part.
Right? When you get in
Is
that
there
really
anything? Is there anything specific, like any information that jumped out at you guys that was valuable? Maybe some statistics that we shared about OTT, or some of the placements that maybe you didn't know about. I know we talked about Twitch.
That's wild to me too, and it makes sense. I
Isn't
mean,
that crazy?
I know that they bought Twitch, but like I never pieced it together that, oh wow, I could have products. I mean, because I'm like from a product brand owner perspective, I'm thinking of all of the potentiality here. Like you could almost think about where you can run ads and then come up with niches for new products and brands to start just because you have access to something like that.
Right. Yes, you can get inspiration and then come up with your product. So I think it's going to birth, a new industry. Amazon is interested in streaming platforms that are community driven, right? So they've just showed that with their purchase of Twitch, and I'm really excited to see what they come out with. But they're definitely targeting younger, to kind of raise up this new generation that is going to change their shopping habits, right? They're going to go into shopping groups or get recommendations from this group that they're engaged with on Twitch or other groups, right? So it's a whole new, this is what I'm thinking could potentially happen with communities, just like you see on Facebook groups, for example, right? I think Amazon's going to do that at scale for people that, want to buy products or services or ads.
Well, yeah, and it's not just their purchase of Twitch that signals that, but also if you look at what they're doing with Amazon Live, so they also understand that the younger generation is going to usher in social shopping while watching their favorite influencers. And so all of this indicates that Amazon understands the direction that Gen Z and younger millennials are going, because we see it on other platforms, and Amazon's hip to this game now. So they're paving the way for to take advantage of that, because this is how these generations are going to start engaging in commerce. It'll be groups, it'll be influencers, it'll be in real time, it'll be with technology like AR technology, which I know Amazon's played around with a little bit. Also with their like 3D photos and some listings, like they understand what's going to speak to the psychology of this buying group, and they're testing all that out. And all that means is in the next 5 years is going to look different for us, whether we're on the Amazon platform or we're off of it. In e-commerce in general, it's shifting. It's going to look different for us too. We'll have access to newer tools, but we're also going to be called to put a lot more forethought into the message. Community building, like you mentioned, is going to be huge. These communities, these groups, they're not going to just allow any brand, any product into their group. They're only going to talk about it if it's inclusive and if it speaks, the message of the brand speaks to them and their values. So it changes the game a little bit. I think that we're going to see a lot less. It's not going to go away completely, but we're going to see a lot less of people jumping in and just finding like stuff to flip for cash. And we're going to see a lot more people really trying to build a brand. And so, yeah, I think the DSP and other opportunities really lend themselves to people who are trying to, who maybe not even necessarily take a long-term approach, but trying to build something substantial.
Right. Right. And I like what you said about value, brands that are bringing in value instead of just kind of, flipping products. Maybe it's more value driven marketing. I don't know if that's a term, but that would be really interesting to see more focus on brands and value. That would be a really interesting shift in the marketplace. But regardless if it fragments into different communities like Twitch, et cetera, the way to access it, whether short-term, long-term, is DSP. That is the way forward to get access into these marketplaces.
So very, very cool stuff. Opportunities for e-commerce sellers, brand owners, and also Amazon. Like, how perfect is this for them? I haven't even really thought about it too much, but it's like, holy crap, these guys were already the behemoth in the room. And then
don't worry about Amazon.
And then Apple and Google and all these other big tech companies are like, oh, privacy is a major issue. We need to address this. And Amazon ends up being a huge benefactor in all of this. They're just like, oh, yeah, you're right. Third-party data. No note of that. Like that meme where that guy's like, so they really made it out on this one. But all that means is that they're going to have more revenue to expand, and they're just going to build and buy new or big, awesome opportunities for the rest of us to leverage. So anyway, all right. Well, we've made it a little bit past the top of the hour. I don't see any other questions in here. So that was short and sweet. I think it was packed with information. Thank you for those of you who joined us. Do me a favor, if you would, whenever the replay is available, get your friends to look at it, because I really do feel like this is valuable information coming from Erika about the opportunities that DSP has to offer. And we really need to get the word out. We need people to understand they can scale with this thing. So, all right. With that, I bid everybody a farewell.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Anthony.
All right. Y'all take care.
See you on the other side.